Ozma of Oz Part 2. I am on a hotel balcony in San Diego, so if you hear lots of noise around, that's why. Where we last left off, Dorothy just discovered TikTok, the man made of machinery and copper, and they are safe for now from the Wheelers on top of the hill. Dorothy opens up the dinner pail that she got from the tree, and TikTok starts winding down, so he is already in need of more support and another wind up from Dorothy. She didn't wind him up all the way the first time. I feel like this represents how the kind of capitalist machine and how industrialism requires the support of the everyday worker to function. They talk for a while about his backstory, and Dorothy learns that she really actually has nothing to fear from the Wheelers. And we also find out that this whole situation with King Evaldo, or Evil Do, I assume is how it's pronounced, and the children and his wife being held hostage, that is a pretty recent development. TikTok talks about how he is one of a kind and his makers, Smith and Tinker, are both gone. Mr. Smith was an artist, and he painted a picture that was so realistic that as he reached across the river that he made, he fell in the water and drowned. This feels very Alice in Wonderland to me. And then Mr. Tinker made a ladder so tall that he climbed all the way up to the moon and decided to move there. Dorothy talks about her old friend, the Scarecrow. And Bellina the hen continues to be very, very skeptical about all of her talking about the Land of Oz. Which is interesting because she lived on Dorothy's farm, and I have to assume that in the years since she went to Oz, her family members have heard something about it. This reminds me of the Wicked years, because in the Wicked books, the first time Dorothy goes back to Oz is in the book Out of Oz. She returns to Oz because she is in an elevator in San Francisco during the big 1906 earthquake. So that's how she ends up back there. But Aunt Em and Uncle Henry are very skeptical of her talking about Oz and her experience there. They think she's crazy, so that's why they have her out in San Francisco in the first place. So I feel like Bellina's treatment of her is reflective of that. Anyway, TikTok says that I will protect you from the Wheelers, and they decide to go to the town of Evna. Oh, and he also tells her about everything that happened in the Marvelous Land of Oz, how Ozma is ruling Oz now. They successfully get past the Wheelers, and TikTok just bops them over the head with the dinner pail. And TikTok takes one of the Wheelers as a prisoner, going to the Palace of Ev. The Kingdom of Ev, in the absence of the king, the king's children, and the king's wife, is currently being ruled by Princess Langwidere, who is doing not a lot of ruling, but is spending a lot of the kingdom's money. And she's very, very vain and has lots of different heads. So let's see, this is the maid. Let me get to her. Okay, so this is her. You can see her with her collections of numbered heads. She has all these mirrors, and she literally just puts them onto her neck. I think this could have to do with a couple of things. It could be corrupt politicians sort of being two-faced, but I mean, she has more than two faces. Or it could also represent political parties sort of pretending to be ideologically different, but ultimately having a lot of the same agenda. It also could represent the whims of the rich, having all of these unnecessary luxuries while the average person is starving, or in this case, while her relatives are all being held hostage. She unlocks all of these heads with a key carved from a blood red ruby, and she always keeps it attached to her wrist. This seems to represent how the people's, like, blood, sweat, and tears ultimately fuel the luxuries of the rich. So our whole crew goes to see her, and Princess Langwidere insists that Dorothy give up her face in exchange for one of her cast-off heads that she doesn't use anymore. To me, this represents sort of selling your soul for a corporation or a job. And then Dorothy says absolutely not, and so she's imprisoned in a tower. And while she's imprisoned, TikTok, the capitalist machine, stops working. So I kind of wonder if this represents a worker strike. But from afar, Dorothy sees this procession. So there's Ozma, a lion and a tiger, and all of her old friends, the Scarecrow, the Sawhorse, although she doesn't know the Sawhorse, the Tin Woodman, lots and lots of soldiers in the back, and they are walking across the desert that separates Oz from the Kingdom of Ev on this magic green carpet. So I guess the sands are poisonous, or like they'll kill you as soon as you touch them, and Dorothy's the only one who's really been able to traverse these, either with the silver shoes or the cyclone. So I feel like this might represent sort of the common people marching to overthrow capitalism, maybe on money, on this green carpet. I wonder if This reflects a couple of major strikes that happened in the US in the 1890s, like the Pullman strike and the Homestead Steel strike. Specifically, maybe the Pullman strike, because in this case, they're being transported across a desolate desert by sort of one thin road. And the Pullman strike had to do with rail workers specifically. Dorothy looks down and is like, please save me. Here's another picture of that. And then they go to see Princess Langwidere, and she is very upset that all of this has happened. The Scarecrow's like, yikes. But the thing is, Ozma didn't even know that Dorothy was trapped there. She came to free the whole royal family so that they could rule instead of Princess Langwidere. And she doesn't really like ruling. She likes to just admire all of her faces in the mirror. I feel like she's sort of a wealthy heiress. So she would like to have her family retrieved, and she frees Dorothy. And that's all for today. See you tomorrow.